Welcome to the Sports Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Luer, and I'm excited to have Dato Razlan Razali with me here today, calling in from my other home in Malaysia. Welcome to the podcast, Razlan, sorry.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited, maybe too excited here, getting all the names and everything wrong here. But it's always good to have someone who, lives in the same place where I've been living the last 25 years. And obviously we know each other well from all the days there in Sepang and everywhere else. But before we get into all the fun stories we can share here, I'd love to sort of just quickly introduce you to also the listeners. Dato Razlan has been the CEO until very recently of Sepang International Circuit, which is the circuit which we're hosting the Formula One races in Malaysia for over 20 years. And we'll definitely do a good look into what you've been doing there over those years. And then more, maybe your current claim to fame is you are the team principal of the Petronas Yamaha Sepang racing team, which is doing incredibly well in MotoGP. And of course, the teams below that, the Petronas Sprinter racing team, which races in Moto2 and Moto3. And again, having incredible results. So we're going to have a very good look into the world of MotoGP here and how this young team is, breaking records and doing just so incredibly well there with all your riders. So, but before we go all the way there, let's go back to the start. How did you get into this amazing world of motor racing and your passion? You mentioned earlier you were an ex-racer yourself. But how do you really get in there? And I believe, you were obviously in different industries before and then ended up setting up a business with your brother in the events management side and focus on music and concerts. Brought some big artists into the country, and that kind of led to work, doing some work with Sepang at the racetrack. But tell us a little more detail on that.
Yeah, well, I started my career actually as a consultant in Pricewaterhouse as soon as I graduated.
Right.
And then I went into construction industry specifically in mechanical and electrical in a listed company. Mm-hmm. And then we saw the market crash, I think in 97, mm-hmm. 97, 98.
Asian financial crisis.
And I was playing a lot of golf. Exactly. I was playing a lot of golf. And true to the saying of playing golf, you meet people.
Right.
Because there was no jobs then. So I met up with this gentleman called Mikael Karlstrom. He's the CEO of Ericsson Business Malaysia Consulting or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he introduced me to, at that time, what mobile internet is all about. Right. And we set up this IT company, and that's my first venture into a .com company in 99, 2000.
Right.
We raised some funds from VCs and all that, and I sold it in 2002 and went into a promoting concert event management company, promoting international artists with my brother called Pineapple Concerts. We did quite good.
Who did you have to the point who came into town? Just throwing a few names out.
Wow. Well, the first artist we got in, someone that I was not a big fan of was Sergio Mendes,
Okay.
Then after that, we brought in a rock band called Incubus and Black Eyed Peas. And coincidentally, I was doing something for Sepang Circuit as well, providing international artists for their annual Formula One gala dinner. So we brought in Kanye West, Jamiroquai, Lionel Richie, John Legend. We did that for a couple of years until the situation of the entertainment industry was not so good, and I decided to stop. And my brother continued though, and I heard from the chairman of Sepang Circuit that there's a vacancy for a general manager position, which is basically a CEO position.
Yes.
And I inquired and sent my CV and arranged for a long lunch interview at at Bangsa Shopping Center,
Yes.
at this place.
Everyone in Malaysia will know that place.
Yes, and of course I know my chairman very well. We a little bit of nepotism there, I think, but unfortunately, after that long interview, the chairman then said, "No, I'm not qualified or experienced enough to be the general manager of Sepang Circuit," and I was very disappointed.
Right.
But 6 months later, I got a call from a headhunter. At that time, Sepang Circuit was owned by Malaysia Airports. Mm-hmm. And Malaysia Airports was doing a recruitment or headhunting for that position, and I was headhunted. I was interviewed by the chairman and the managing director of Malaysia Airports, and within 3 months, no, actually 6 months, it took that long. I was appointed as Sepang International Circuit CEO.
And this was in the year...
Yeah, I finally got it after that long.
Yeah, and this is what, about 2000 and...
I think it was October 2008. Right. It was 2 weeks before the Malaysian MotoGP. Imagine that, huh? 2 weeks before Malaysian MotoGP, I was appointed as the CEO of Sepang Circuit.
Right. And let's spend a little bit. You spent, more than a decade there, which and obviously in that period of time, Sepa went through many changes as well. The industry went through many changes. At the end of the day, the Formula One race was also dropped, and we'll definitely get into that. But when it comes to running a racetrack, especially in Malaysia, there's only one. Therefore, you don't really have much competition there. But it's clearly not an easy thing, and I remember having many conversations with yourself and others about that, and bringing in sponsors and bringing in races. So, tell us a little bit about your own experience there. Maybe some of the highs and the lows of running a racetrack.
Well, I know Sepang International Circuit very well. I think a lot of Malaysians knows it very well. It's an iconic infrastructure for Malaysia. It's equivalent to Kuala Lumpur International Airport or the Twin Towers, in fact.
That's right.
So it's an iconic facility. However, when I came in a situation where there was a vacuum of leadership for the last 3 years. It was they were practicing nearly a blank check operation, and the focus was a lot on Formula One. There was less emphasis on MotoGP, and essentially there was no business plan or business model or any kind of sustainability that you see at Sepang Circuit. I know the team very well because I was a former national racer in the national championship in Sepang Circuit. So we know the situation that they are in. So my first mandate is to ensure that both Formula One, all our international events, in fact, to be sustainable. Sustainable doesn't mean it's self-financing, because, as you know, F1 and MotoGP is the rights fees are so expensive. It's more of a mega event in the likes of nearly like an Olympics type, where it needs to be funded by the government, especially in this side of the world.
Correct.
So we were told that I was instructed to basically restructure everything, have a business plan, promote the international events as best as we can. At that time, we had quite a number of international events. Some, actually, all of them were losing money, operationally losing money, and we were giving facilities or track days for free to conflicting parties. We don't charge them, and etc.
Okay.
So it was a lot of work.
It was a mess, basically. You inherited.
It was, yes.
Okay.
It was. And the culture there was, is a culture that's been around since 1999 when I came in 2008, and also a typical, how do you say it then? Malaysians are timid or they're not aggressive enough. So when we welcome Formula One and MotoGP, they bullied us. Right. Basically, if they ask us to jump, we will reply and say how high. Right. So everything is yes, and they don't accept no. Right. So it's that mentality that was difficult, that I'm not used to when I came in. So I had a culture shock. Right. In a way. So when I came in, it was 2 weeks before MotoGP, so I couldn't do much. So I let the event run by itself. But the first one was in 2009, which is a Formula 1 that was in March 2009. So that's when, to some extent, I did maintain how it was done before. I was learning how the attitude of the Formula 1 people when they came over, and I was not impressed at all. And I cannot accept these guys coming to Malaysia, coming to Sepang Circuit, and start pushing us around. Right. So we changed the culture. I brought in good event marketing people, etc., etc. So it's a total restructuring, but it took a while, because when a new boss come in, the first thing that you don't want to do is to disrupt everything overnight. So you need to slowly ease into it, because we are in an event business, number one, and if they're not happy with your style, or they don't get if you don't get the buy-in from them, they can do a lot of nasty things, which happen once or twice. So I had to slowly warm up to them, roll up my sleeves, go on the ground, go to see how every single event was conducted, and slowly introduce them new ideas, new ways to do it. If there's a process that takes A to Z, try to reduce it to a couple of steps. Right. So it was a real challenge. It's the culture issue. But eventually we did it, and to sustain Sepang Circuit, we basically sell everything. Every square foot of that place, we have a price tag on it. Right. Even to the extent that I had price tag on my staff. So I charge everything, anything under the sky, and it was not a popular move with the users of the track in the past. It was tough. We had clients who refused to do business with us, and of course, and we don't do business with clients who owes us money even. Yeah. So they kept on saying, before in the past, we get to use it and pay later. And I said, well, you don't go to a hotel room and stay there and then pay later when you leave, So it's the same philosophy, So I disrupted the normal ways of doing business with Sepang Circuit, and we tried to be more professional, more commercial, sell everything under the sky, and so we got to where we were today. I think Sepang Circuit is not known just for Formula One or MotoGP. It's known for a multifaceted venue. That's the word. That's what I used before, because it's just a ballroom under the sky. Really, you can sell it, everything, and do anything in Sepang Circuit, except for the rooms, of course.
Yeah. And we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to definitely touch on some of the other events you've done there and during your era. But let's stick a bit to F1 for a minute. That is, of course, the biggest race, or was the biggest race, Sepang was hosting every year, at least in terms of global. I know the MotoGP eventually turned into the bigger race from a local perspective, and that's, there's a nice lead in where we talk about that later, of course. Dealing with, of course, Bernie Ecclestone still at that time, and tell us some stories. I mean, again, Bernie is not an easy one. We all, many people know him. I know him a bit, done some business with him. And as you rightly said, he comes in, he bullies, and that's just the way they operate. But what was it? What was your sort of the highs and the lows of these F1 races for you in over that span of almost over 10 years there?
The first time I met Bernie was December 2008. In preparation for my first Formula One in 2009. obviously it makes sense for me to go and see him.
Yes.
So I went with my chairman then. So he introduced me to Mr. Ecclestone, and I had a plan of how I would like to improve Formula One. I think there was more or less 10 items that I wanted to introduce for Sepang Circuit for the first time. And mind you, these 10 items is something that you get already in European circuit. Just we don't get it in Sepang.
Right.
And apparently I was told that it's you can't do it, you know. So I went in and presented 10 things that I want to do, at least 10 things, I think. And came out of that meeting frustrated, pissed off. Pardon my French. And none was approved. You know, we're talking about autograph sessions with F1 drivers, concerts after the show, after the race, and a lot of items are basically fans engagement activities. Right. You know, we need to create more off-track stuff, you know, besides racing. You know, we need to create a lot of activities. So all of them got
So Bernie just flat out said no to everything, basically?
Yeah, no or pay us more, you know.
All right,
so,
okay, yes.
Yeah, but taking a cue from one of my mentors, actually, yeah, one of my mentors is that, you know, this is your first year in Sepang Circuit, your first Formula One, your first everything. You can afford to make mistakes. Just do it. You know. So from that cue, you know, coming up to 2009, my first Formula One, I just did everything that I wanted in the presentation that I made to Bernie. I just bulldoze and do it anyway.
Right, okay.
Yes, he was not happy. He threatened us with penalties left, right, and center, but I did it anyway.
Right.
So, you know, so again, you need to do what's best for your business, what's best for Sepang Circuit, what's best for Malaysian Grand Prix. So we just did it anyway. We paid a lot of money to bring the show, the circus to Malaysia. So we did it. And that's one part. But when the circus came to Sepang Circuit, wow, they are a bunch of bullies, you know. You know, not the teams, not Formula One team, but then Formula One the teams have this level of arrogance in them. You know, they come and demand everything and demand it for free, even. Right. You know, and if they want everything to be fixed, they want it to be fixed now. You know, so so they came and dominate everything, and again, there's something that I'm not used to, but the Sepang Circuit staff then was used to it. Right. You know, they run around like
well,
I don't want to use the word. Yeah, in some ways, you know. So so that was very interesting, and but that was the first and the last time for me that we're working that way. So so even the second year onwards, we changed. Every year it was firefighting with them, screaming, shouting session, legal issues and everything. So it's not great actually. Even until my last Formula One in 2017, you know, that was the last year Malaysia had Formula One. You know, they refused to do things that we feel is necessary for Malaysia. But then again, my second MotoGP, which is the same year in 2009, again, when they came to Malaysia for my first MotoGP, 2 weeks after I got appointed, I sat down with Mr. Espeleta, which is a Bernie Ecclestone equivalent for two wheels.
For Dorna, yes.
And Dorna. And, you know, without prompting them what I want to do, Carmelo came to my office. Okay, not the other way around. I had to go to his office. He came to my office and said, "Look, Razlan, you know, we've been in Malaysia since 1996. Okay, from the old circuit of Batu Tiga in Shah
Nice.
We've been here. We went to South of Malaysia, Johor for 1 year, and now we are in Sepang Circuit. We love Malaysia. We love the country. But, give us something to do. We come here, we set it up, we race, and we go home.
Right.
Okay, but there's nothing. There's hardly anybody on the grandstands. There's giving us enough to do,
right.
And that was music to my ears. That was magical. I did the same thing. I presented something like more than 10 things that I want to do. I got 15.
Right.
I get more than what I want.
Yeah, exactly. Complete opposite. Yes.
Yeah, and you can clearly see from my first year in Sepang Circuit, as the year go by until the day I leave, which was this year, beginning of this year.
Yes.
You can see MotoGP have grown
like
in
crazy.
terms of spectators, in terms of events. It's madness,
Yes, correct.
And Formula One, they're to be honest, I was a big fan of Formula One, even before MotoGP. I follow it all the time, but now I just simply don't watch it anymore. Okay. But that's another story.
Yeah. No, and I, and before we move on, I definitely wanted. I mean, the entire time for Malaysia's races, I think it was 1999. I think when the first race, I was living there, so I pretty much spent the whole 20 years there. Probably went to almost all, went to many of the races. And of course, F1 initially started with it was huge, right? The venue was full. Fans flocked from all over the world to it. But then at the end of the day, it became jaded. There was nothing new to it anymore. There was very little additional things going on. And MotoGP, as you rightly said, was almost the opposite, right? Initially, it was very few fans. And then slowly it became very popular. It became the sort of in thing to come to. Obviously had something to do with what you were doing as well there, which we'll get to later. But I wanted to just stick for a minute to, when Malaysia finally decided to, drop the F1 race. There was a lot of debates in the country. Was it a good idea? It was a time to move on, or, should the country continue with it? And I actually was fairly vocal in saying it was the best thing for the country as well as for the racetrack, because, we both know it never made any money anyway. And I did believe it had run its course. It did what it did. It put Malaysia on the map worldwide for sure. I remember in the early days when I was talking to people where I live, and no one would knew where Malaysia is, and because of F1, I do believe people started to know, where the country was. So I think it did a lot of great things for the country, but it had run its course. What was your take? What was it? What would you say now? I know maybe at that time you couldn't really say what you wanted to say.
I did say a lot of
you
things.
Did? Okay.
I did annoy them. I want to share you another funny story is that when we as management proposed to our board that we proposed not to continue with Formula One. In fact, we reduced the term by 1 year.
Right.
So we stopped 1 year earlier than our
correct.
original contract. In 2017. So the funny thing was on Saturday of that weekend, Reuters interviewed me and asked me why we dropped Formula One, etc., etc. And then one question the journalist asked me was, so if Formula One gave you the event for free, would you do it or not? And I said, even given for free, I would not host Formula One in Sepang.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so we end that interview like that as the end statement, and then he called me up. I think a few hours later and said, "Can I use that as a headline?" I said, "Why not?" So on Sunday, out in Reuters, I think the headline says something like, "Even given for free, Malaysia would not host Formula One."
Right.
Okay, that was
a big
front page. That's a huge headline on Sunday of our finale.
Right.
Okay, and at that time the new owners of Formula One were so upset.
Right.
Liberty Media, I think Chase Carey or whatever his name was.
Yes.
He was there. He was very upset. And of course, when the Prime Minister came, Dato Sri Najib came, and the plan was when he came, we were supposed to have a press conference to recognize, appreciate what everybody have done.
Yeah.
And leading up the stairs, he said, "Wow, I like your statement. Even given for free, we won't host it." That was walking up to the press conference. And true enough, at that time on the press conference, I was seated on the stage with the Prime Minister, with the Petronas chairman, our title sponsor, my chairman, and myself. And the first question the media asked was that.
Yes, of course.
So that was interesting. And I did not hold my words. I said it as it is, Right. But the reason why we did that was, yes, it has put Malaysia on the map as a global destination. In fact, too much to the extent that people don't know Malaysia, but when you mention Sepang, they know. I think Sepang is more popular as a destination than Malaysia in general, I think. But it has put the country on the map. It promotes the country as a global destination, tourism destination. But it ran out its intention when we saw a decline in spectators.
Right.
I think in 2016 or 15, there was a report out by Fox Sports that Malaysia was the lowest in terms of TV audience, So, and more importantly for Sepang Circuit, while Formula One, the rights fees, is funded by the government, we try to be operationally profitable, okay? And we were profitable operationally until the last couple of years, 15 and 16, I think. Right. So we anticipate that this will continue, and it is financially detrimental to Sepang Circuit. So I think in 2016, when I was hosting the Prime Minister then, and we just entered into a new agreement with Formula One of just 3 years, 16 to 18. Okay, so 2016, I was entertaining the Prime Minister, and we can clearly see the empty grandstands.
Right.
And he asked a question, actually, how much do we pay? He should know this, but he asked anyway, how much do we pay in terms of right fees? So at that time, and it's public information now, at that time, we were paying something like nearly 80 million US a year.
80.
Okay. 80.
Wow.
Okay. And he said, wow, with crowds like this, I think we need to stop. So the Prime Minister asked us if we could try to exit the current agreement without any penalty.
Right.
Yeah. So at that time we had a balance of 2 years left, 17 and 18. So the strategy was to see Formula One and try to negotiate our way out. I guess we were in a good position because at that time when we went to Abu Dhabi, in 2016, there was a takeover between, or Bernie sold his shareholdings to Liberty Media. So there was a change of guards.
Yes.
And there was a lot of negativity between Bernie and Liberty Media, et cetera. And I think Liberty did not want any more negative news, and they allowed us to exit Formula One by 1 year earlier with any penalty, so that was very good news for us, and that's it. So
that was the end of that road. And it's interesting. I have plenty of great and fond memories watching Michael Schumacher, my hero, racing in Sepang and in the rain and everything. So, there's plenty of great stuff about it. But I think we're really at a time here where I want to move into the world of MotoGP, because this is where you are now. But it obviously started with your time at Sepang, where you started to have a talent program to build up Malaysian riders. And again, this is my interpretation of it, and I'd love to hear your version of it, is because of all of a sudden having Malaysian riders in MotoGP, even though it was on the lower categories in Moto3, etc., you started to build local heroes, right? And I think that's what I would call, at least, it was starting to be the buzz, that people aren't just coming there because motor racing or MotoGP is exciting to watch. But it was also because there was some local heroes and people could identify with them, right? And obviously, motorcycle is a big thing in Malaysia anyway. Many people ride it. Some have to, others choose to. What's your side of it? How did you see that how you were able to build this local presence and how that related to the race and how the race became so popular and, like you said, with full grandstand now?
Yeah, prior to me becoming the CEO of the circuit, indirectly I was trying to help Malaysian motorsports, especially two wheels, because I'm an avid biker. I race as well, so I wanted to help. I want to help the industry grow, especially in two wheels, and I could not do it on my own. And being the CEO is a perfect platform to do what I wanted to do. Right. So my first commitment, in fact, my first press conference 2 weeks before Malaysian MotoGP was my commitment to put a Malaysian rider as a wild card in the 2009 Malaysian MotoGP. Right. Because it's not complicated. Malaysians will come in droves if they see their fellow Malaysians competing in a world championship.
Absolutely.
It's like football, so yep. It's not rocket science. So what we wanted to do was to create a local hero.
Yes.
So what we did was we embarked on a search for that rider together at that time with Malaysian Association of Motorsports, MAM, together with our national championship organizer promoter, which is very big in the local scene. So we went on a nationwide search for the best of Malaysians, right, to put them in at that time the category 1 to 5 cc category, which is now Moto 3 category. Right. As a wild card in October 2009. Right. So we did that search, and finally we came up with 2 riders, not one, and put them in the wild card, put them on a bike during Malaysian Grand Prix. And already we saw at that time, with all the marketing campaign and publicity, we saw already from 2008 nearly 20% rise of spectators. Right. 2009. So it clearly worked, yes. And make it a sweetener is that the boys did relatively well. Yes. They just missed out on points, or came 16th place, and the other came on 19th place, which is great. Yeah. So that was the beginning of the development program. Yes. From that onwards, 2010, we had our first Malaysian rider in the 1 to 5 cc category as a full-time rider. And it continues until now, so which was great, and it leads to where we were, or where I am now as well. From Absolutely. Putting a young boy in a 1 to 5, we placed them in teams at first, and then we created our first Sepang Circuit first Moto 3 team in 2015. Actually, that was a hard sell to my board, believe it or not, in 2015. Right. And until the opportunity came in 2019, where we managed to do to create our MotoGP team. Okay, yeah. So it's a nice story.
I want to jump back for a minute here, and for our international audience here is, in Malaysia we call it kapchais, right? Which are these little underbone bikes. They're a look a bit like, I'm not really like a scooter, but and that's obviously they're very popular. There are local races where they race on the streets. It looks dangerous as hell. I've seen it. Actually, we've been involved in it many years ago with a sponsor at that time. And tell us a little bit about that. That culture of this kind of racing, kapchai racing, and how that, of course, translated into now bringing in your own talent into the real world of motorsports, or into the bigger bikes, right?
Yeah, those category of bikes or underbone bikes or the locally called it kapjais. I mean, the manufacturers in Malaysia, not only Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam,
Correct.
they sell this kind of bikes by the
Yes.
millions.
That's right.
Okay, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, whatever is huge, and on the streets there's millions of these guys on the road. It can be a pest sometimes, but that's what drives the market, the economy. That is the money spinning for two wheels,
That's right.
And of course, it transforms or correlates to racing, like any other automobile industry, whatever, from road cars and whatnot. They go on the track and race. So then the national championship, the Cup Prix, is really, really big. Okay, but and hence we have a lot of riders, a lot of talent exists in Malaysia. So. It's good and bad. So I start off with the good first. Is that we do have young kids who can ride motorbike and race motorbikes.
Yes.
But the bad thing is, it's the wrong kind of bike to race in Europe.
Right.
So when they go to Europe, it's a full-fledged racing machine, where the tank is underneath, in front of you, not between your legs, that you get on the underbone.
Yes.
So they may be good in the Kapchai type of bikes, but when they go on the real bikes, they struggle.
Yeah.
And that's why always a couple of steps ahead, because in Europe they started off properly. Right. And we didn't, so that's one part of the problem. The other part is the money involved in the national championship is huge. So we have kids at age 15, 16, 17 years old. When they race in the national championship, they are rewarded financially really, really high for them.
Okay.
We're talking about, 10,000 ringgit, 20,000 ringgit, at the age of 16, 17 or 18, they drive. Yeah, they drive a good Honda cars, or some drives a BMW. So, it's financially rewarding.
Right.
But when they go to a world championship in the lower category, nobody knows who you are. You are a rookie, and you don't get paid so much. So the motivation was different. So there's two aspects here. The kind of bikes that they used to ride in Malaysia, and the motivation thereafter, when they enjoy.
Yeah, sorry. What would you say in terms, in general, of all the riders you've had who've really, taken this on and took, their skills to another level? I mean, you had several, of course, and I was looking through it earlier, from Zulfami to, Adam Noureddin, Hafiz, etc. Who's really there who sort of, you took this to the level of where you wanted them to be, and really were competing or is competing now?
Well, I mean, if you look at, that's a hard one. All of them are talented. If you compare them to their European counterparts, they are just as talented. But some riders are less talented, but they put a lot of effort on training. A lot of training and all that, so they can get better and better. The skill-wise, talent-wise, we are there, no doubt. Zulfami had podium 3 times. Twice in the World Championship, once in World Superbike. Khairul Anam is the first Malaysian who actually had 2 wins in Argentina and Germany in Moto3. And Hafiz Sharin is our first MotoGP rider, and podium winners as well in Japan and somewhere else. Right. So they are all podium winners. But what the difference between them and the others is the lack of the mental strength. Okay, their mental strength is very weak. They don't have that discipline enough like the other European guys. And I can say this because now we have 6 riders, 5 Europeans across MotoGP, Moto2 and Moto3, and 1 Malaysian. Right. And because of COVID this year, I get to spend 3 months with them in Spain, from July. And I can clearly see the difference between the Spanish riders and our rider.
Right.
Okay, so my general assessment is that we lack discipline, we lack hard work in terms of training, and our mental strength is very poor.
Right.
So to me that's the difference. But talent-wise, we do have it, but we need to figure out and put a lot more emphasis on the other aspects. I said mental training and discipline and so on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about the incredible, start into the MotoGP scene last year, where the team came in. The team was the Rookie of the Year. Fabio was the Rookie of the Year, but the team was the Best Independent Team Award in your first season in MotoGP. Fabio obviously was a rookie, and he's just came out blazing with podium finishes and everything in between. And of course, in the second season now you topped it. You had several wins already this year. Again, more podiums. Fabio currently is standing second in the ranking. Was actually first until the last race last weekend, where he didn't have such a good race. The team again is in top position. I think you're second again for team overall standing, and even Moto 2 and 3 are doing well. So it's just an incredible achievement. How would you credit this? Is it really all the work you've did previously and just slowly build it up? Was a bit of luck, having Fabio coming in there and just doing so incredibly well? How would you describe it?
I think Lady Luck play a lot of role in it, especially in our first year.
Right.
Number one, we never ever planned to have a MotoGP team.
Okay.
Never. I mean, we can only dream. This is a childhood dream
right.
of mine. If I can recollect the fact that I wish if I would live my life again, if I would have a chance to reincarnate it into something, I want to be a manager for Liverpool Football Club.
Okay.
Because Liverpool is my favorite team. Or run a MotoGP team.
Right.
Honestly,
right.
So these are just dreams, and to me to finally get to do what I used to dream, what I'm dreaming of is amazing. Right. You cannot get any better than this,
Right.
So we were given an opportunity. We were at the right place at the right time to seize on this opportunity and work hard to make sure it works. Okay, it was a tireless effort by myself, my race team director, Johan Stigefeld, where we started our Moto 3 team with Sepang Circuit in 2015. And then we went to Moto 2 in 2017. And when Petronas came in 2017 with us as a title partner for Moto 3, they were looking around and searched in the paddock to sponsor a MotoGP team. They couldn't. Okay. So when the story arises in 2018 that one MotoGP team was financially in trouble and will withdraw, and of course I had a good relationship with Dorna, so we were just, I can remember it was in Jerez in 2018, which is round 4 of the championship. We were sitting down in our small little hospitality, sitting down with Johan, and we were talking about this team that's in trouble, and at the same time I said, if we could get Petronas on board, we can do this, do that. It could be a possibility.
Yes.
And Carlos Espeleta, which is Carmelo's son, was walking in front of us. And I quickly jumped up and said, look, I want to try. So I ran up to him, stopped him on his tracks and said, look, we heard about this team that's in trouble. If I can get Petronas on board and we could somehow speak to Yamaha, do you think it's ever possible for us to take over? And he said, you know what, let me think about Carmelo and let's see.
Right.
Within 15 minutes, Carmelo called me and I went to his office and said the same thing. And Carmelo said, let's do this.
Right.
If you think you can put it together, I can do this for you. And that was the beginning of everything. I went back to Johan and said, Johan, we can do this. Okay, let's work on it. And we work on it tirelessly. We presented to Petronas. We addressed what Petronas wants in terms of commercial technology development, Malaysian motorsport development, and boom, we are where we are today.
Awesome.
But the question is, how the hell did we find Fabio?
Yes, that's right.
That's another interesting story. So we finally got an official letter from Petronas to say, okay, we want to support you for the next 3 years for MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3. That's it. We got it. Now the question is, okay, which rider do we want? So Frankie Morbidelli was the easiest because we basically took the entry from this team, and Frankie Morbidelli, being a Moto2 world champion in 2018, is a credible rider. So he was the easiest. Okay. The second rider was a little bit more difficult. At that time, we had a 5-time world champion Jorge Lorenzo who wants to ride with us.
Okay.
We had Danny Pedrosa who wants to ride with us, and some other Bradley Smith who wants to ride with us. So initially we were waiting for Danny Pedrosa, but he called me and said, okay, look, I can't do this anymore. I want to retire. And the other MotoGP riders are Bradley Smith and Bautista. They're not exciting enough, because I want the team to be exciting. Okay, we have Frankie Morbidelli, which is great, but we need one more rider that is exciting. So we were running out of riders in the MotoGP. So again, myself and Johan, we were sitting down in our truck, our technical truck, I think in Assen, I can't remember, and we had to go down a level to Moto2 to find a rider. So we were thinking, okay, who's the rider? So while we were talking, thinking, and list down names, suddenly during the Moto2 race, Fabio Quartararo won the race. Okay, and he was on a speed up chassis, which is less great than the Kalex that everybody uses,
Right.
So Johan pointed out, what about this guy, Fabio Quartararo? I said, Quarta-who? Is he Spanish? Yeah, is he Spanish? No, he's French. I said, geez, I don't know this guy. Then Johan said, oh, he knows this guy. He was a multi champion in the Junior World Championship for Moto3. Then he came to Moto3 World Championship. He won 1-2 races, but he was nothing great. Okay, he was not even in top 10 in Moto2.
Right. Okay.
But we were running out of options. So everybody, when we speak to people, say, Fabio was supposed to be the next Marc Marquez, and again he was badly managed by his management, so he dropped out. Blah 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 blah. And say, okay, if this is the boy that you guys are recommending, okay, then I looked at the fact that Hafiz Sharin then was in Tech 3 MotoGP team on a Yamaha. So he came in as a last-minute entry, and he did relatively well. So I said, if we bring in this boy, he cannot do any worse than Hafiz Sharin. That was the benchmark,
right?
So I decided, okay, fine, let's do it.
Give it a go.
Okay, so after the 2018 season, a couple of days after that, we conducted the winter test for MotoGP,
right?
And in Valencia, and that's the first time our bikes roll its wheel. Okay, and that's the first time Frankie and Fabio got onto a Yamaha bike.
Right.
And guess what? Fabio was the fastest guy, top 8 on his first MotoGP experience.
Right.
Okay, he was already top 8.
Right.
And we were like, our mouth were wide open and said, wow, we did not expect that. So he tested 2 days, and then in 2019, again, we never expect him to be where he was on that year. So, but when he came to Malaysia for the winter test in February, he was one of the fastest guy on the bike. And we were like, again, wow, this boy has potential, But we did not put any kind of targets for him except for Rookie of the Year. That's it.
Right.
So come Qatar, the first race, he qualified fifth, I think, which was fantastic. But he made a rookie mistake and stalled on the grid.
Oh, right.
And he started at the He started at the pit lane, but he was just outside the point. He was 16th, and he's got the fastest lap in Qatar. Yeah, so so after that we thought, okay, this boy has potential, but we didn't know that he could do what he did. So after a couple of races, the first European race in Jerez, which is round 4, guess what? We qualified 1 and 2. Yes. Fabio and Frankie, 1 and 2 in our first European race in 2019. Okay, and really? that was crazy. Okay, and then after that we went to Barcelona, and that's when we get our first podium after 6 races in our MotoGP class, and Fabio came second. So it's unbelievable, this boy, and we got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, and you need, I think in business and in life and in racing, you do need luck, and I think but you make the luck too, and I think that's you already explained that well in your story, how a lot of the hard work then pays out, and so luck is an asterisk here. Now let's talk a bit about the second season. You are standing there right on the top until as I said earlier last week, you were right on the top there. Do you believe you can win this year? Either the individual race title, of course, or as a team. Is that now going to be the ambition? It would be, I'm assuming, but I want to ask you.
Well, when we started the year, although it's a very difficult year with COVID and all that, the intention was, one is to maintain and try to win the independent team. Mm-hmm. Okay, independent team, independent rider is the minimum. Right. On paper, Fabio has a full factory bike compared to Valentino Rossi and Maverick Vinales. Mm-hmm. Frankie has a slightly less spec bike. It's still based on last year's factory bike, but enhanced. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look at the bikes that we have, with the riders that we have, we should be in contention for the World Championship. Right. Okay, Fabio should be able to fight Marc Marquez. Mm. Okay, but we did not put that target. The target was to get our first win. Right. Okay, if you look at the statistics, the last 20 years, Yamaha satellite team have not won against Honda for the last 20 years. Right. Okay, so our intention, our target was, let's get one win. Okay, we tasted what it's like to get a world championship podium, second and third. Yes. What is it like to taste of our first win? Yes. That was our first target. We were not thinking about the world championship at all. Yes. Okay, so when the season starts in Jerez, okay, there's 2 races in Jerez. Wow, we won. We got pole position, and we won from pole position, and we were crazy. We were, oh my God, the feeling was amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the week after that, we said, look, that was great. Let's lock it up in a box. This is on Monday. Let's lock it up in a box. Be calm. We enjoyed that moment. We enjoyed Sunday night. Now we lock everything in the box, and we have to focus again from Tuesday onwards. Yes. Okay. And the second race, Jerez 2, we did it again, back-to-back win. Right. Wow, crazy, But we did not get ahead of ourselves. Again, when I give my team talk to the team every Thursday before a race, is that we need to be calm. We need to focus on per race. We don't think about the World Championship. Mm-hmm. Okay, if we fight for podium every round, automatically we are in a fight for the championship. Yeah. We did not do well. The 2 Austria races, we performed miserably. We came back in Catalonia, and then Misano, we didn't do too well either, and especially the last race in where was it? Aragon 1. We performed really badly and lost the championship lead, and now second with 6 points. Right. But this is again, yes, we are not happy about it, but we're not crying over it. I mean,
that's
it's
racing.
A close championship, but Yeah, that's racing, and the strategy remains. Let's approach it race by race.
Yeah, I like this. I think
yeah.
that your team talk and what you were sharing earlier, it sounds very much like the great football coaches, the Alex Fergusons of the world, right? It's about always the next game, or even, Jurgen Klopp now in Liverpool there, who, I think they do take it each game at a time, right? And like you said, if you keep winning or if you keep adding points, you will be somewhat at the top there. And then, at the end, you'll see how you get there, fight for it. So I think it's an amazing story, and I love, and I will be continuously watching. I've been watching a lot more MotoGP lately, not just because I knew we were going to do an interview here, but also I do think it's extremely exciting. You've had some crazy races, but also crazy crashes this year. I'm sure you know this better than I do. Some of these video clips are out there are just unbelievable, and again, I want to talk a little bit about that, because these riders, it's just unreal how they get up, they shake themselves off. Obviously sometimes they might get hurt as well, but it's just, these guys are superhuman in my mind.
Yeah, sometimes too superhuman. Look what happened to Marquez. There's limit, of course. But our riders themselves went through their share of pain. Xavi Verge, our Moto2 rider, after Le Mans, he was fighting for the win, and he had a big high side. And of course, I was in Malaysia, and I called him, and he was on the way back to Barcelona, and I said, "So how are you doing?" Yeah, I had a big crash. I broke all my fingers on my feet. I broke a ligament in my ankle. I will go to the doctor in Barcelona tomorrow, and I should be okay for the next race in Aragon.
Wow.
And he did race, and so in Aragon, he did. We didn't expect so much from him, but he actually raced. He went back on the bike and tried his best, and after that he showed me a photo of his feet swollen 3 times of its size, and this is what MotoGP riders do. Fabio had 2 massive crashes on Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
He was all bruised up, and then he still managed a pole position, but unfortunately technical issues with his tire pressure dropped him down to 18th. Yeah. But this is MotoGP riders. They are tough guys. You don't get to see Formula One riders with this kind of injuries. Even football players. These guys. Break a collarbone. Don't worry. Go to have an operation and come back the next day and race. Because for these guys, every round is an Olympic for them. They cannot afford to miss a race, if they really want to fight for the World Championship. Yeah. And especially in this compressed, tight calendar with 3 triple headers, you can see it. You saw what happened with Marquez. You saw what happened with some of the riders. If you get hurt last weekend, you potentially may miss the following.
Yeah, because everything is so close to each other.
Will hurt your chance to fight for the championship.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So again, for them, every round is an Olympic.
Yeah. Now I know all our listeners are just waiting for me to finally drop the word here, and that is, of course, you're signing with Valentino Rossi for the new season. Obviously one of the most amazing riders over the last decade plus. An icon in God knows how many ways. And here he is now coming to your team. And adding his credentials and flavor and colors, of course, to it. Talk us a bit through there. How did you get him in there? And of course, also, at the same time, you have Fabio leaving. So how did that all work out within the Yamaha family there?
Well, number one, we are what you call a satellite team. It's a development team to develop young riders with one day to absorb them. The factory will absorb them in their team, right, of course. And we saw that with Fabio. A lot of people ask me, why can't you retain Fabio? And I said, look, if a factory comes to a rider and says, okay, we want you to ride for us and pay you a lot of money, don't tell me you will say no. Of course, you will say yes, and we as a satellite team, we should not ruin the market and pay a rider what a factory rider should get. Right. So we let him go because that was our philosophy. That was our objective, is to develop young riders for them to go to the factory, and that is the collaboration that we have with Yamaha. I mean, that's the intention of a satellite. The situation of COVID changed the plan a lot because Valentino, Yamaha factory team, supposed to assess Valentino this year in a normal calendar year, and he himself will supposed to assess whether he's competitive or not for him to continue. Right. But COVID stopped everything, and the season starts in July, and with no spectators, we felt, or Yamaha and Valentino felt, that a guy like him should not retire during a period like this. If you want to retire, you want to retire in a normal year where in front of spectators, thousands and millions of spectators, celebrate this and that,
Yes.
So Yamaha offered an opportunity for us whether we could consider Valentino for next year with these reasons. And for us, it's not our first preference because we want young riders, but with the championship uncertain this year, we couldn't take a chance whether any Moto2 riders could be good for us. So with the focus of stability, while we extended our contract with Frankie, yes, okay, he can provide that stability and in some ways performance, but we wanted added stability. So we thought, okay, having Valentino is not so bad. Okay, we are losing Fabio, and we need to get the story of the team continue going forward. So having Valentino can give us that good story, can give us that attention, and at the same time, more importantly, stability. Because at the end of the day, you can talk anything about him being old, etc., but he can kick some of the asses out there. I mean, this year alone, if you look in Brno or Austria, he was the strongest Yamaha compared to Vinales, Fabio, and Frankie even, so he's not so bad for his age. So we thought, yeah, why not? And the financial consideration was very good because it's all paid by Yamaha. So we thought, okay, why not? Let's do it, So, it took a long time because Valentino is not a normal rider. He is Valentino, so there's a lot of web of agreements that we have to sign with Yamaha, with VR46, with Sepang Circuit and all that. But finally, before Misano 2, we made that announcement. So we look forward to receiving him next year. And he's not so bad. He's quite pleasant to talk to and work with.
Yeah, I'm sure. Again, you would know him better than I do. But what you see of him, of course, in the media, he is the character, and that's what he gets paid for, and that's what he's done. I'm sure he'd be great for Petronas as well as a sponsor. Adding this sort of huge, high-profile personality to it. Petronas already done extremely well in F1, was the Mercedes team there for years. Everyone would know them, of course, from there, and of course being also the title sponsor of the Malaysian race during your era. So, Petronas is right up there in the world of motor racing for sure as a brand, and so is Valentino. So I think it's a great combination, and I look forward to seeing that combo there and seeing what the doctor can do. Is going to be interesting for sure. But the season, of course, isn't over, and I'd love to quickly talk a bit about that. And it's more from how MotoGP has managed to keep it fairly safe in terms of creating a bubble, I guess, around the riders, around the teams. Talk us a bit through it. How did it work? Obviously Valentino recently was I guess it was tested positive with COVID, so how he caught it, I don't know. But I'm less interested in his side of it. But in general, how did you manage to keep the team together, and of course keeping all the different teams as a bubble? What was your experience doing that?
Yeah, even for Petronas, they reminded us that with this current pandemic, the safety and health of our team members is the utmost priority. So taking cue of that, we created a safety and health SOP. In addition to what MotoGP have created, so we have our own SOPs. We send daily messages to all the team members that's traveling to remind them of being vigilant, to adhere to the SOPs that's given, to protect themselves. So number one, since July, I have a staff who send graphic reminders of what to do. Okay, whether they like it or not, in their group WhatsApp, they get these reminders. I think that's important. Right. When we get there, of course, besides adhering to the protocol, the safety protocol that is by Dorna, we had to remind them further through team talks. To me, team talk is very important because we're such a big team. We are a team of nearly 60 people. Yeah. So we need to, I think it's important to take a little bit of time from them, at least 5 minutes, to really do a team talk and remind ourselves of the safety and health, et cetera. What we can't control them when they're at the hotel. There's always a tendency to go out somewhere and do some stupid things, So yep. we had to remind ourselves, remind the team, besides what we want to target for the weekend. So the team talk is very important. And we also receive reminders from Dorna for teams to adhere to the SOPs. And if teams are caught breaching these SOPs, they can be kicked out of the championship. Right, so that is a strong enough incentive not to do anything stupid.
Absolutely. So how much is everyone staying therefore in the same type of hotel, or how does the whole how is everyone traveling as a big group from one race to the other? How is that currently coordinated? How does it look in a simple description?
Well, the simple thing is that Dorna wanted to create this safety bubble or this MotoGP bubble. Right. So before we scan our way into the paddock, they have this app, this app whereby you need to be tested and the results has to be within 48 to 72 hours before you enter the track. Right. All this is via this special app that they have created. So once you have your QR code to say that you're granted to enter the circuit. Right. So you have to enter the circuit within 48 to 72 hours of your latest negative result. And when you are in the circuit, you have to remain with your team. You can't mix around how you used to it. There's no hospitality at all. Okay. Everybody have to remain within their own pit garages, their own truck. Right. We have our own catering, and they make special exemption for us because we are a team of 60 people. But other teams are sharing with other teams, so they try to limit the catering to a couple of caterers to maintain the hygiene, SOPs and all that. We have to wear face masks. It's compulsory. If you're close to the rider, you have to wear face shield, goggles, and everything. So that's the kind of SOPs. But it's not 100% foolproof, as you can see. Valentino was positive. A couple of riders was positive. In fact, one of our guys, two of our guys are positive. Our crew members was positive. Yeah. So. There's no shame of you being positive. Yes, it is an infectious disease, but there's no shame in it. So we have to be declared. You have to declare. Early detection is the best, and to determine who are your close contacts so that we can isolate them, etc. Yeah. We had one case, for example, whereby John McPhee had our Moto3 rider had a false positive. So we. At that time, before we knew that he was positive, we had lunch with him, and we traveled earlier to Misano, and John called us and said, "Oh guys, my results came out that I'm positive." And the first thing we had to do, we had to isolate myself, a couple of our other guys. We isolate ourselves in our hotel room. until John did 2 extra tests and he came out negative. So that was a scary moment even for me personally. It was a close contact with him. But it's hard. It's hard to be 100% protected. But the moment you have doubts, the moment you have some kind of symptoms, you just need to take action. And that's what generally the paddock is doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I guess we have 4 races left, if I counted correctly. This year, of course, the race season was very different. Normally, it obviously goes around the world. Unfortunately, the race in Malaysia was cancelled, and other races in other parts of the world. So it was much more within, let's say, Europe in a sense, and that's probably a smart way of doing it. 4 races to go. What's your prediction, Dato? Before we wrap this up here, what do you predict? You're going to win this, or where do you think you're going to land?
We have seen it so many times in the recent race where we started in pole and finished 18th.
Yes.
I mean, the MotoGP championship, it's so unpredictable right now. We have the top 7 who potentially can win. We have Joan Mir of Suzuki, who have not even won a single race, but was a regular podium guys. He could win the championship without winning anything. Right. So right now, I cannot call it at all with 4 races to go. We are 6 points behind. Frankie is 6. With only 30 points. There's 200 points to fight for the win. Anything can happen. And this is, as much as we are sad that we did not do well last weekend, I mean, I'm just excited for the championship. Yes. I'm excited for the win that Suzuki had, or Alex Marquez. It's great. We lose. But it's no shame in losing. But the championship is so exciting and unpredictable. So I can't call it. Our approach is still on a race by race situation. I think this weekend will be another difficult race because of what happened last week, and we try to recover as much as possible. But the 2 Valencia races are great for the Yamaha. Short winding circuit is always good for Yamaha. Okay. Portimao in Portugal is the first time everybody is going there, so we don't know. Again, so that adds a surprise for everybody because you just don't know. So the more that you don't know, the more unpredictable it is. Keeps everybody guessing and keeps the championship exciting.
Yeah, and that's true. And you rightly pointed out that's the big difference with F1 right now for sure, where it is. There's not much. I mean, it's great racing still, but it's too predictable, and of course Mercedes has just been too dominant. And that's my maybe our last sort of topic here for the day. You've been involved in F1 and you've seen it as a racetrack CEO, and now of course you are directly involved in MotoGP as a team principal. What's your thought going forward in the next few years? Where do you see both of these race series going? If you would look a bit into the future, past once we get past COVID and the world goes a little bit back to normal again.
Yeah, I think the motorsport industry will pick up again once COVID is post-COVID. Once we have a vaccine and everything is sorted, I think the industry will bounce back up. But then again, it's the championship that is important. Formula One changes a lot. Sometimes it's too much, for reason because of the emission and from petrol combustion engine to hybrid, etc. There's too much technical elements for the normal fans to follow. And they change a lot. And it's one team just dominating the championship for the last 7-8 years. Yes. Whereby MotoGP, yes, you see they did not change so much in terms of regulations, technical regulations, but you do have one guy who dominates for the last couple of years, which is Marquez. Yes. We saw last year that maybe Fabio could have give him a good challenge. We will never know because he got injured early this year. But I think you have a lot of young guys out there that can be competitive, and that's the key. I think you need to have young riders, drivers coming up the ranks and fight these established guys.
Yeah. Do you see there is a bit more parity in the bikes as well versus in the cars? Is that besides the riders, of course, they make a difference, but at the same time, it is still you're sitting on a very advanced technology machine here. Do you feel there is maybe that's one thing as well, that in MotoGP the bikes are just a bit closer to each other and therefore create this tight racing which we see every weekend?
Yeah, well, the thing is with Formula One, I think it's not like how it was before. I think they're comfortable in the car, whereby it's like driving a Mercedes, I guess, like a Bentley. You're racing those things. It seems easy for them. I mean, it seems easy, but for MotoGP, you can have all this technology, but you still need to drive that machine between your legs. You still need to lean it as much as possible. And the worst thing, fall, you have to pick yourself, and that's if you don't again. In a car, if you go off track or you hit a tire barrier, it doesn't dent your confidence so much, I think. But if a guy on a bike, like Fabio, he had a massive front end fall, yes. His hip, but to come back later in the day and get a pole position, it's unheard of.
Yeah, that's crazy.
These guys could easily have a mental breakdown. Yeah. But they somehow can pick themselves up and still do it again. So that's the big difference with MotoGP, is that no matter how much technology that's put into the bike, they still have to ride the damn thing.
Yeah.
as fast as possible.
Exactly. And as I said, there are daredevils on these machines, and I'm going to enjoy watching the rest of the season and keeping my fingers crossed, of course, for your team to take this all the way to the checkered flag here. So, Dato Razlan, thank you for your time here. This was great. We could keep going. There's so many other things I'd love to talk to you about, but we'll keep that for another round. But for now, best of luck for the rest of the season, and let's see whether you can bring a championship home to Malaysia.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Great talk. And let's see. Cross our fingers, and one race at a time.
Definitely, yeah. And I'll catch you again soon in KL. Cheers.
Thank you, Marcus. Look forward to see you soon. Cheers, man.
Bye-bye.
The Sports Entrepreneurs by Marcus Luer podcasts are a collection of interviews and stories. All content in this podcast is the copyright of Marcus Luer. Reproduction and distribution of the presentation without written permission of the owner is prohibited. All rights reserved.